All right. In today's Qualified at the Intersection, I want to talk about civic engagement. I had the pleasure and honor today to be a moderator at my friend Congresswoman Janelle Bynum's Give 'em Hell tour. She's going to communities within her district to find out what people need, what they want, what their issues are, so that she can actively take those issues back to Congress and address them. And what was interesting to me today about this is people came out at. She's gone to different areas within her district. Someone told me at one point there were 1,000 people. Today there was maybe a couple, maybe 100 or so, but going to all kinds of different areas. And it made me think about our responsibility around civic engagement. I mean, a lot of times we say somebody should do something, but we're somebody, you're somebody, I'm somebody, we're all somebody. So if somebody should do something, I guess we're the somebody who should do something. And I just think that is so important for us to really, in this moment, strategize about what our civic engagement looks like. And I know a lot of people say, well, what difference does it make if I call? Well, if we can shut down the switchboard, it does matter. Or if we can flood them with letters, and this is a reference for the old folks, but in Miracle on 34th Street style, if we can flood their offices with letters, that matters. If we can show up for representatives, Congress folks, when they have these listening tours and bring our suggestions and ideas, that is important. But one thing we have to realize is that each individual congressperson has one vote. They don't have like different votes. And so they cannot fix all of our problems. And when I was back at Northwestern Law School talking to students about my book and everything, and I told them, I said, hey, you all are going to have to be on the ground. But what I can provide intellectually is air support. I can try to do messaging. I can try to do those things to provide air support, but you all are going to pick up the legal baton in the courtroom, right? Because they are the next generation of folks up. And I've been thinking about this, our responsibility around civic engagement and how, well, what can I do? Well, what can you do with 5 people? What can 10 people do? What can 20 people do? When you talk about your school boards, I talked to somebody recently at a dinner who said they were able to get some very problematic people off their school board in a small town. They did it. They worked together. They got it done. When you think about where we are now, I think about the Tea Party, and some of you may remember that. And they started as grassroots. And at the end of the day, it's like the revenge of the Tea Party. Like the Tea Party really was a match maybe that helped light this fire that ultimately would become the MAGA movement. And so what does that look like for this side of folks who want to move change? There are so many big intractable issues. But the other thing about civic engagement that I thought about today, moderating this town hall, is that people don't know how civics works. I mean, it's just super interesting to me. Like, there are people who believe that one congressperson can impeach a president. It isn't clear that people don't fully understand that elections have consequences. They do not fully understand that. They seem to think that they can undo the consequences of elections, but elections do have consequences. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't engage in civic engagement, but I'm saying we need to root our civic engagement in the reality of the fact that elections have consequences. And so it is, we have to think about what does pragmatism look like and not let perfection be the enemy of the good. I think for some people this past election, perfection became the enemy of the good, and it allowed evil to enter the chat. In other words, unless you intellectually agree with me and unless you are the candidate who I want you to be exactly how I want you to be, I'm not going to vote for you. I'm not going to get out and vote. I don't like your position on this or that. Well, while you did that, all evil takes is for good men to do nothing and good women. And that means to not vote because you have a pragmatic choice. The other thing about civics is I think about the third party push. Where are they now? where are the third party people really right now? Where are they on the social media platforms? Because they were everywhere spreading their message. Where are they in the public discourse? Because this is the time that you do that organizing. This is the time you get ready for a national election. You don't run the Boston Marathon for your first time running ever. You don't say, well, I'm going to get up tomorrow and run the Boston Marathon. I mean, maybe somebody somewhere does. I guess I shouldn't say that. Maybe somebody somewhere does, but generally you cannot. And so from a civic engagements perspective, the way you develop that third party that you want is at the grassroots level, at the local level, moving up to the federal level. I mean, there is something about our lack of understanding of civics that is a danger to democracy, right? When we talk about, again, the impeachment issues, or even when we talk about big issues like Gaza, one congressperson is not going to change U.S. policy of the president who has the majority House and the majority Senate. But what you could have influenced was a different president with a different configuration in the House and the Senate. You probably could have influenced that. That is a pragmatic approach to what can I influence and what can I not. Right now, we're in a position where it's a mystery to me how people really conceptualize the layers of civic engagement and responsibility. And so, watching people exercise their civic rights tonight and come out and ask passionate questions and important questions was super interesting to me. And it made me wonder, what are any of us doing around civic engagement? One of the questions someone asked was about messaging, which is close to my heart. I know that people who have different opinions than MAGA, than Donald Trump, than his white supremacist narrative have done a terrible job on communicating to people what was at stake. I think that Joe Biden, whatever you think of him, was right, that democracy was on the line, but nobody really explained what that meant in practical terms to people. And that was part of the difficulty. So I thought that was a great question. I think, we have to think about what civic engagement means. We have to maybe sit down and read a book or listen to an audiobook and understand the civic process. We have to think about what pragmatism really means in a two-party system if we are not going to do the work in the off years like the Tea Party did to really rise up a whole new political movement. And this is their baby that they helped birth into the world that we live in right now. So at the intersection today, I'm having some reflections on civic engagement. I would love to get your comments about what you think about civic engagement. Have you gone to a town hall for your representative? Have you written? Have you called? Have you talked to other people? Have you tried to bridge those gaps with people who you think might be persuadable? What kind of messaging do you think would work and could help turn the tide around civic engagement? So that's Qualified at the Intersection today. I know there's a lot of things. The Supreme Court is about to do some massive decisions coming up here. There's recently some research coming out about the devastating impact of this attack on DEI. I know all of that is happening, but this evening I just had some reflections around civic engagement. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.